What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to your classes. Today we're going to be going over Uber Eats and how to get more tips and really just make more money on the app. As I've said, you have to be somewhat strategic with all of these. So let's dive in. Number one is picking your orders carefully. There's not a lot of time in each day, and there's not a lot of time you're going to be doing deliveries specifically. So you need to be careful with the deliveries you pick. Shorter deliveries are generally going to make you more money when it's all said and done because you can do more per hour. I only do the longer ones if it's a really nice restaurant because my guess is that that's someone who can tip a little bit bigger. So you just want to be a little picky on what orders you do take. Obviously, you know, it can be sometimes hard to tell because there's going to be some orders where you just have a really generous tipper. So there might be some where technically you're losing out, quote unquote. But for the most part, the general rule of thumb is going to be the more orders and deliveries you do in an hour, the more money you're making. You can't just base everything off of what you think could be a good tip. But if it's a really nice restaurant, that's generally an order that's a good one to take a risk on. The next thing is avoid delivering to students. So they rarely tip, and they usually are in like a area or on a campus that's really hard to find or really difficult to deliver to. So if you notice that the delivery is going to a college or something, I would just decline that. Their $5 Taco Bell order is probably not going to have a tip on top of it. Another like easy thing to do is just park close to expensive restaurants or in their parking lot. So if you do a delivery and you haven't gotten one yet and you know there's like a really bougie restaurant close by, just go park in that parking lot and you'll probably get a nice one pinging you pretty close after that. Another frustrating thing can be having to walk really far to do the deliveries. Now, one thing that I've done in the past is I've called them and just said, hey, to be honest, I'm really not sure where it's at. Like, do you mind meeting me down here? I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. If you're having a really hard time finding them, like, don't waste your time just walking around trying to figure it out. Shoot them a call because it can be a very frustrating part of the process. Along with that, if it's apartment complexes and you're really struggling too, like if I can't find it within the first like minute, I'm generally going to go to the lobby and ask if they can meet me at the lobby or the leasing office or whatever spot, you know, makes the most sense, just because they need to understand and they need to be able to meet you halfway. Now, the key is once you have that engagement, don't look like annoyed or ticked off that you couldn't find it. Remember, you got to cater to them to get the tip. So what I would always do is I'd be like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I really wanted to bring it to your door. I honestly had the hardest time figuring out your complex. I really hope it wasn't an inconvenience. And as long as you phrase it like it's kind of your fault, they're probably still going to tip you. When you do get a more expensive order, like that's when you want to really go above and beyond. Obviously, you want to have all the delivery carriers and things in place so that the food stays warm. But even beyond that, if I get a really expensive order, I'm really making sure that food's not falling over. I'm really making sure they've got all the utensils and extra napkins and anything they would want. Like, I'm really going to be a lot more careful than I am with the Taco Bell order because I know I could possibly get a much, much larger tip when it's a bigger order like that. So make sure you're really going above and beyond on those expensive orders. If it is a dead time, just go home. One of the biggest differences between delivery for food and just like ride sharing is ride sharing can stay relatively consistent even in the more dead times. Delivery, you can really sit with nothing for long periods of time. So if you're not getting pings, just go home and go back out at a time where you know it's going to be busier. Another thing is, if you've done this for a while, you know there's restaurants with long wait times. If you haven't, you'll start to learn which ones are. Those are usually the deliveries you're going to want to cancel. I've had times where I sat in a restaurant for like 30, 40 minutes waiting for the food, and that just kills your momentum. you're making way less money in that hour than you should. And it's just all around frustrating. And really, on that note, in general, cancel bad orders. If it's not a good order, just cancel it. If it's taking too long, just cancel it. Because at the end of the day, you're out here to make money. And you want to cater to the customer, but if you're having an hour where you're basically losing money, don't let that happen. Just cancel the freaking order. Believe me, you'll be thankful you did it. Another thing is do a lot of research. Like for Uber and Lyft, do a lot of research in your market. Look for YouTube videos from drivers that have done delivery in your area and follow the advice they give on certain restaurants or certain areas or times. If you don't see anything, just do your own research, test the market a bit, collect some data, and base the rest of your deliveries and driving off of that. Another big thing where people can go wrong is hanging around chatting. Like, having a little bit of a conversation with someone, there's nothing wrong with that. Just talking, engaging, that's going to help you get a tip. But if it starts dragging on, just be honest. Hey, sir, I've really appreciated this conversation. And honestly, it's been great talking to you. I've really got to make rent, though. So I'm so sorry, but I do need to get going. But I really hope that, like, I get a delivery for you again here soon. People will respect that. Like, they know you're hustling. They know why you're out here. If there are hot zones, which is basically the equivalent of surge, do your best to stay inside those hot zones and cancel rides or deliveries that are going to take you out of those hot zones. That's just going to increase your earnings way, way, way more. Another big thing is always bring a bag divider for separate orders. That's that almost goes without saying though. And one thing I mentioned in an earlier video was considering getting like an electric scooter or something and not driving. In a lot of ways, that's actually going to be more beneficial if you're not having to pay the gas. And in busier times, a lot of times on shorter deliveries, you can actually get there quicker than if you were in the car. Another thing, and this is just a good tip in general, is always double check the order and make sure it's the right thing. If it's not the right order, you're definitely not getting a tip. So go the extra mile to make sure you're giving them the right food. And really kind of what that leads to is don't give the customer any reason to not tip you. Do everything you can to where there's no way they're not satisfied, you know? Give them no reason to be like, he doesn't deserve it. And that can sometimes be tough because some people are just difficult. But in general, if you go above and beyond and you're nice and respectful and timely, you're going to get a tip. Another thing is, and I've joked a lot about Taco Bell, and that's because usually those are the worst deliveries. Fast food, a lot of times, are the worst deliveries. Usually don't get a big tip. On top of that, it can really not be that fast, ironically enough. A lot of times there's long lines, especially at the times of day that you're getting a delivery order. There's sometimes crazy lines, and it can really, really mess up your schedule. So anyways, that's our segment on Uber Eats and delivery. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys are crushing it out there, and I look forward to talking with you guys again soon.